Hi, good evening. This is Frangina Johnson with Obsidian Arts Collective. And for Juneteenth, we decided to get together. I decided that it would be nice to know some of the artists that we don't get a chance to meet because there's so many people out there, from this young man that we're going to be interviewing today. He's 20, until people that are my age and people that are older that are have creative endeavors, and they just take their time and they just pursue them. And so, in light of Juneteenth, this is our July 4th, this is our Independence Day. So, for the next 6 days, every day at 6 o'clock p.m., I'm going to be interviewing someone and they're going to express themselves. And I call this the voice behind the artist. And arts comes in all different ways, all different mediums. The art of, there's an art of living, there's an art to that. There's an art to spoken word, there's an art to writing, there's an art to painting, there's an art to sculpturing. So it covers, there's an art to dancing. Everything really is an art. And so those are the things that I want to cover. I just don't want to talk about artists who are printing or sketching or working with acrylics or anything of that nature. I want to speak to all people who take the time to really go inside themselves. So this evening, the first person that I'm going to be interviewing, his name is Khadari Powers. Hello, Khadari.
Hello, Miss Gina. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I'm glad that you would like to share what it is that you do with the world, because this is not just here in Minnesota or Minneapolis. This is here, whoever turns in, chimes in from whatever state they're in. And so they'll get a chance to meet you and know you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you originally from here?
I was born in Mankato, so I am originally from Minnesota.
Okay.
Throughout my
And
early, I moved around through the Midwest, through Indianapolis to East Chicago projects, which are Lake County in Indiana,
mhm.
and then back up to here. So I spent pretty much a good part of my life in the Twin Cities.
Excellent, excellent. And let's start talking about what it is that you do. What do you do? What's your art? What's your medium? What is it that you like enjoying to express, and how?
I enjoy creating relationships. I enjoy seeking out and uncovering maybe how do I say, more complicated. I won't say more complicated, but more rough around the edges type of how do I say, type of like key characteristics within my social network. Um, as I kind of very sparsely explained in my bio, um, I've been around a little bit, and the experiences that I've chosen to engage in have kind of shaped and helped flourish my love for art in itself. And I believe communication is an art. Um,
It is. It
yes.
definitely is an art. Okay. And so, how do you communicate that as your art? I mean, are you a storyteller? Do you do spoken word?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you spit, as they say? Do you spit it out? Are you a poet? How do you express yourself?
I can align myself with each of those categories. I've been writing poetry and short stories since I was about 10 years old.
Mm.
Just the art of telling stories to me always like it drew me in very, very, how do I say, eagerly, like being able to create and envision, and communicate the way I feel about whether it's my surroundings or even something I just make up in my head. Um, so storytelling, poetry, spoken word. I, I've just recently, over the last few years, started to dabble in lyricism. Uh, I do love
Explain to people who don't know what that is. Explain to us what is lyricism.
for sure. So lyricism is the exercise and practice of studied linguistics. And to kind of elaborate on that, lyricism is, how do I say, lyricism in itself is kind of a challenge and how do I say, a challenge and a focal point that kind of connects our language with our how do I say, articulation. So I believe it's a just a practice, more so an exercise to dive deeper into the words that we say and what they mean, versus the emotions that we have and our intentions, or our true, so I'll say our intentions.
Okay. So the pieces that you have written that you're gonna grace us with in a few minutes, those pieces, what inspired you to write what you did? I mean, are those things that you just think about? You read in the paper, you see on the news. How do you become inspired to do what you do?
So the first excerpt from the first piece that I'll be reading is from a piece called Ashtray and I. Ashtray and I is more centered around the things that I see. So specifically within Ashtray and I, our economic and kind of like social disrupt at the time, where I stand, where you might stand, or where the people around me stand as citizens and or as members of the community. So that's my first.
Okay, let's hear that piece now. Let's hear that now.
Show. Okay, good. All right. So this first piece is called Ashtray and I will only be doing an excerpt because it is very long and pieces of it kind of get a little bit more rough. So
it's Ashtray and I, or Ashtray and I'm?
Ashtray and I.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And this piece, yes, ma'am, is centered, focusing kind of around the riots and the things that have been happening around Minneapolis. So Ashtray and I. America ashes, the masses, hot soot molasses. Yet we only cough when we talk out our asses. Polishing our walk and powdering our lashes with government hall passes. Masquerade balls through jaws of passerbys whose masks can't hide the absence of action. I, Ashtray, offer my clear glass foundation to patience. In the end, roaches, sticks, and stems, no one can remember the embers of all us great pretenders.
That's pretty deep.
Thank you very much. If you'd like me to read it again as well, because the first time I'd be a little jittery, just let me know.
Oh, no, you don't have to do that. If you want to read the second piece or something that you have, you can read that one, and then we can talk about it for a little bit.
I'd love to. So this piece is maybe a little bit shorter, depending on how much of it I can get through. All of my pieces kind of come together as like almost like a puzzle, like a puzzle board. I start to think about something that either affects me or something that I have value or I place value in, and then I kind of think about how it may be viewed from the outside, or how it may be how I may have misconstrued the value, or misconstrued the principle behind what I my idea.
Okay.
So the second one is called Forewarning to an Addict. And the title is spelled the number 4, warning to an addict.
Okay.
In cold pursuit, trailing stale escape, 10-4. Sober speed, chasing bubbles through cement. Corner after corner, escape kept pacing in search of air to vent. Figure 4 warning, basement's vacant box. Turning, twisting, searching, inside he sighs. Escape scraped a scalpel from which his faith was circumcised. And that was a little bit smaller. It's actually a part of a song that me and Denitra are in the process of working on, so I can't necessarily give you the whole verse. But
okay.
Would you also like me to send you? I can send you like the written version, or I can put the written version up here in the chat or something like that, just so you have a better understanding.
No, we're good. You could send it to me later, though. I would love to
No.
read the whole thing.
Yes,
It would
ma'am.
be nice because so a lot of times when we start out with our stories and we try to express people from our what we're feeling through our experiences, and then you just give us a little piece of it, we're like, okay, we want more. So it would have been nice if you could have given us a little bit more.
Sure. Sure.
I would have wanted some more.
I appreciate that. I'll definitely make sure I put in my effort to make sure that happens.
Okay. So that last piece that you wrote, was that from self-experience?
Yeah. So, and I can actually give you like the gist or.
Okay. What? Okay.
So the title is Forewarning to an Addict. So if I imagine myself, as I'm writing this, I imagine myself speaking to either my younger self or maybe, a younger companion of mine or a younger friend of mine, kind of warning them in a roundabout way about addiction, or the pursuit of, how do I say, the pursuit of chemical balance, because it never really works out, especially when we add things to ourselves. There's nothing we can really add to ourselves that will make us better. It just helps us escape. Um, so the main character in this short story is Escape. His name is Escape. But in a roundabout way, Escape is being pursued by. In the story, there's no narrative or there's no dialogue surrounding who Escape is being pursued by, but Escape is being pursued by his own inner angst, his own inner desire to escape. If you've ever, what's the, darn it? There's a poem by Jill Scott Heron, and in it, I gotta make sure I cite that too. But he kind of touches on.
The revolution will not be televised, Gil Scott.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But in a poem of his, he touches on how escape is kind of like kind of like a deadly circle, because you're consistently looking for somewhere to hide or some cover to block you from whatever it is that you fear, whatever it is that you're afraid of facing, but it's always going to be inside of you, and that's the main motivation behind this technically a verse, but it's also technically a short story. So yeah, forewarning to an addict in cold pursuit, trailing stale escape. That actually first sentence, I think, and captures addiction and captures the consistent pursuit to try and escape through man-made means, which I believe is completely vain. But I can't separate myself from someone who might or someone who does consistently follow that. Yeah, I'll keep like kind of like explaining to you through the lines and verses.
Okay, sure.
So sober speed chasing bubbles through cement. That's also another kind of a line in there that speaks to me personally, especially if I'm speaking to myself. Sober speed is kind of, think of like a high speed chase.
Over speed.
So imagine
we're talking about dry cement or wet cement?
Dry cement.
Really? Bubbles in dry cement.
So sober speed chasing bubbles through dry cement.
Okay.
So, and what I mean by sober speed chasing instead of high speed chasing is, with an addict, especially with someone that's addicted to a narcotic, you could say, if you were on the outside looking in, we move the most, or we kind of have the most fire under our asses when we're looking for that hookup, when we're looking for that that release, that escape. And the literal sense of chasing bubbles through cement is the use of methamphetamine, which has gotten to an all-time high within the Twin Cities as of the last 5 years.
Really?
Yes, ma'am. So sober speed chasing bubbles through cement. Corner after corner, escape kept pacing in search of air to vent. and this kind of speaks to the kind of like to the urban-esque environment that I kind of see when I think of, I want to just say urban-esque, it's more so, it's like a prison. If you think about what a prison is made out of, it's pure steel and cement. It's kind of like the epitome of the opposite of life. When you're outside, whether it's just gardening or whether it's, tending to the environment outside of yourself.
Yes.
It's always going to be green. It's always going to be something that's alive. Cement, cement. And I also mentioned escape kept pacing in search of air to vent. Figure 4 warning, basement's vacant box. And that's also kind of just another metaphor for being stuck inside of a mindset, but having no way, up. The only way out of, being down is to go up. And I'll touch on really quickly the most important part of this for me is, so I'll start here. Basement's vacant box. Turning, twisting, searching inside, he sighs. Escape scraped a scalpel from which his faith was circumcised.
Ooh, that. Okay. So no, because I mean, back in the day, we would not allow baby boys to leave the hospital without being circumcised. And now it's kind of like, well, some do, some don't. Some mothers like, nah, I'm not letting my child get circumcised, or, but I think not only does it have a religious connotation in terms of you doing it as a sacrifice to say, this is what is required of me and this is part of the law, but it's also to keep yourself healthy and not to be able to attract different diseases because of the foreskin. So it has a kind of twofold type of thing. So when you say that, you're saying like, I'm cutting something. If I'm not mistaken, you're cutting something away from you, even though it hurts, but it's the best thing to do for you.
Yes, ma'am. And it is more so in a morbid sense, since back to the start, it's forewarning to an addict. So I'm going to reread it to you as well. Escape scraped a scalpel from which his faith was circumcised. So to continue the pursuit of your addiction, to continue to live by your addiction, you will eventually at some point, I only see, I've seen from my own 2 eyes through my grandmother, my father, my grandfather, how they kind of turned out from chasing their addiction. They realized that the only way that they could be okay with the life that they wanted to live, that they decided to live, was cutting off, was circumcising their faith, in a sense, cutting off the pieces of themselves, or the pieces of their heart that that look towards the outside, that look towards, how do I say, that look towards, I'm necessarily going to say like, what's the word for it? Sobriety. There we go. I apologize. So basically, you cut off the pieces of yourself that find value in sobriety, or that, the piece of yourself that is sobriety. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So let me see if I understand. Not only have you experienced this from being around family members, but am I okay to say that you also experienced it personally?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I experience it every day. It's something when you gain an addiction and it becomes a habit in your life, it does not go away. Your willingness to follow that addiction, or your willingness to live by that addiction, that depends on you. But the fact that you have it, and the fact that set in stone, that's your weakness. That is your vice. That's what you are more likely to turn to for the path of least resistance.
So if you stayed away from it for 20 years, on the 21st year, something could trigger you and you can go right back. And all that strength that you have acquired, doesn't mean anything?
It goes out the window. It definitely goes out the window. But that the turn of events that may open your eyes to either, one, pursuing the addiction, or two, distancing yourself, that speaks to your inner self. That speaks to your own drive, your own motivation, but also speaks to your own experience. Someone that has been at rock bottom, or someone that has been, at a point in their life where they find no more meaning in their life, you kind of have one of two choices right then. As soon as you feel yourself there, it's like, hey, I'm going to continue to regress until I die emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, or physically, or, I'm going to progress. I'm going to make sure I never have to see this part of myself or, this addiction ever again.
So where was the point in your life that you said, I'm not doing this anymore? That's funny. What was that point? That point that said, enough is enough. I'm not doing this. I want the real Khadari to come out, not the one that's sedated.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. That point was the reason I laugh is because it is still a little bit tender for me. That point was not very, very long ago, and I'll kind of give you a little bit more of a understanding of that. And it's kind of also ties into my status. So I found out May of last year that I was HIV positive. And that was, I became HIV positive. I got infected while kind of in the motions of going through the height of my addiction. You could say, like, needlessly to say, for myself, I immediately turned towards binging. I didn't see any other. I didn't see anything or any value in the process that it took to bring myself up. So since I kind of hit that life-changing experience, I had one of two choices, just as I mentioned earlier. I could either, one, elevate myself and take the steps to spend time with myself, to look at myself, weaknesses, or do as I did, which was binge and block off any type of outside influence that didn't have to do with methamphetamines. And after I got about, so what's this, May of this year, so around like mid-May of this year, actually, I saw myself. I saw myself. No one had to tell me. No one had to look at me and say, "Hey, this is a problem." No one had to say anything, because I had already created the problem and was rolling off my ass with the problem. I was perfectly fine with it until I realized that a whole year had went past since I acquired my status. And I'll give you a small fact with an infectious disease like HIV. After you acquire your medicine and you are taking that medicine every single day, and doing things for your body that aren't, harming your immune system, you become what is called undetectable. Undetectable means untransmittable. So if you were to get tested for HIV, it would not show up. Although, you still have the diagnosis. After you bring down that viral load, you cannot pass it through sexual contact, and you cannot pass it through blood. So I was already undetectable.
After how long?
It only took me 6 weeks.
So after 6 weeks, you tested undetectable?
Yes, ma'am. I was taking my medicine every single day. But I still wasn't hearing that. I wasn't hearing that at all. In my head, I still had this, I had this permanent life-changing, stigma that still, carries so many risks with it, that no one in my immediate family has ever dealt with anything like this. Just a few fun facts, most of my dad's side of the family, they're very rough. They're very, very rough people. My mom's side of the family, they've experienced a lot of drug addiction, a lot of poverty. But in a sense, we've always kind of kept like a certain amount of, common decency about us. And I don't think, not to say that me getting my status is indecent, but it's just something that was outside of the realm of things that any of us could process.
Right.
So, like I said, regardless of me becoming undetectable, a whole year after, I realized, so this May, I realized, I've been undetectable most of this entire year. So it only took me to become undetectable, I think. So yeah, when I got tested, it was exactly the 2nd of July of last year. I got my diagnosis in May, got my medicine throughout all of June, took my medicine, and by July I was undetectable. That still did not change my mind or change, the drive that I had to consistently try to escape. Um, but this May, after moving back in with my brother and spending some time around, just the family that I could reach, I wanted to see different for myself. And in I guess you could say in a more religious sense, I wanted to honor my elders and honor the people that have love and have care and have these experiences with me, where they see me somebody more, somebody, yes, what I was allowing to hold me down. So I reached that bottom. I saw myself, continuing, doing the exact same habits, or continuously practicing the exact same habits. And I told myself, and this is kind of a little bit, more realistic, and if it's okay to say, I told myself that if I was going to continuously chase this chemical over my life, I was just going to kill myself. Like, that was just it. I had no other, I kind of had no other outlet. I'm going to continue to regress and continuously basically speak with my head in my ass, or think with my head in my ass, and block out all the lessons that I can learn, or, I'm gonna shoot forward with all my might. And that's part of the reason why I'm here now, speaking to you.
Well, so then the choice that you've made is to take those experiences and to move further in a career as a poet, a songwriter, and spoken word artist. Is that how you see yourself from this point on?
Yes, ma'am. I see myself as I see myself building the person that I might have needed when I was younger, or building, the person that I want to be fully. I don't know if that kind of makes too much sense. I'm gonna become my best self, so I can give it away to my family, or give it away to the people that come next.
So if you were walking down the street and you saw somebody that reminded you of yourself, what would you say to them?
Reminded me of myself, like, now, or reminded me, like,
Well, before you came to now, before, in the past, if you saw Escape, right?
Yeah.
If you saw Escape and you was walking down the street and you go, oh, here come Escape, what would you say to Escape?
That's actually interesting. I'll let you know. I've come in contact with a lot of young, especially young people, just like myself, through very, very similar upbringing, made very similar choices, and we're even addicted to the same drug, in very, very kind of like unique and random circumstances. But I'm, basically I held no, how do I say it? I held no punches. I was not like, hey, this is bad or anything like that. Like, look, keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to end up dying. You're going to end up dying. You're going to end up, wasting the time that you spent on this earth. You're going to waste all that pain. You're going to waste all that faith, all those moments where you were inspired or moved by something. All those things go out the window. Each time you use, it's like ticking down. The time is ticking. And, I told them, actually, it was about three people exactly. I let them know, I'm only saying this because I know this for me, for myself. I'd rather see you alive and doing whatever it is you want to do than see you dying. Because that's all it is. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I held no punches.
So I want to say this to you, that, I've known you for a short time, but I see so much greatness in you. Like, I see things, always people see things that they don't see in themselves. So I'm thankful that you have turned your life around. Maybe not completely. Maybe you at 180, 190 or something. You're not at 360 yet, but you there. But I'm glad, and I'm glad that you are going to be a model for people such as yourself. And I just want to say to you, I don't care how hard it may seem, you continue to go the path that has been chosen, that you decided, and that's to speak your words so that you can help somebody else and get your feelings out. That's what we do. I'm an artist in my own right, and so that's what we do. We express ourselves in various Some people express it in dance. Some people express it in writing. Some people write a book. Some people do poetry. Some people paint. You know, some people like to sculpt. Some people work with metal. So however you choose to do that, I want you to never, 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 ever give up.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Did you want to grace us? So one more thing is, I don't know, is Henrique, is there anyone online?
Yes, we have Yvette online. If she wants to join us and ask some question, feel free to unmute yourself.
So can you unmute her so we can ask if she would like to ask Khadari any questions?
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are. And yes, I can hear you.
I just wanted to tune in to hear your first guest. He was excellent. I'm impressed with his growth. I'm impressed with his honesty. And I too would like to encourage him. I think as somebody who have a son who is in their 20s and have taught many students at the college level, his age, I want to encourage you. I think what you're doing, that soul searching and that self-discovery is powerful. And you will be an amazing teacher, not only an artist, but an amazing teacher for many others who will treasure your work. And you will get strength as you continue to do your work. You will get strength by helping others and by sharing what you're sharing. So I want to congratulate you and encourage you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yes. It's like you are salvaging your life and you're building your dream. And many of us have had to salvage our lives and build our dreams. And that's where the ups and downs will come. You know, that's part of the growth. And it's easy to say it, but you're living it. And it's the encouragement that keeps us going when others encourage you. I've known Frangina a very short period of time, and just sharing what she's doing and the work that she's doing. And you continue to share your work and continue to be courageous, because what you had today was a courageous conversation. So good luck to you.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
God bless you.
And so I want to say to you that I thank you for being exposed. Like, you was just totally open, because I want you to know something. This is going on YouTube. So it might not happen like right away, but a lot of people are getting ready to see this recording, and they're going to see you being open and telling the truth and being raw about it. And the mere fact that you have no shame, and you shouldn't have any shame, because you don't know what the seed is that's planted in you. And when you plant a seed and you plant it in dirt, it's dark. It's very, very dark. But eventually that seed sprouts up from the dark, and it starts sprouting and growing towards the sun and embracing the light. And so I see that happening with you. I encourage you to continue to be strong. I encourage you to look in the mirror every day and say how much you love yourself. And I encourage you to be the greatest artist, the greatest poet, the greatest songwriter that ever could live. And I don't want you to turn back.
Thank you.
Okay? You are so welcome. Is there any last words you would like to leave us with? As two women who maybe have some wisdom, that you can give us some wisdom. Is there any words you'd like to leave us with? Or the audience?
I can leave you off with a promise. You know, I promise that all the energy and the wisdom and experience and pain and hardships, or even the great moments that both you women have experienced, that won't be forgotten at all, especially while I'm alive. So thank you very much.
You are so welcome. You are so welcome. Well, thank you very much for tuning in to Juneteenth Speaks, celebrating Juneteenth through the voice behind the artist. And I hope to see you again tomorrow. We are going to interview a visual artist and professor from Chicago, Illinois, named Felicia Preston. And then on Sunday, we are we're going to be interviewing 2 women, dancers, poets, and writers, and they're local. They're from Minneapolis. And then on Monday, we're going to have our very own Yvette Troutman, accompanied by Nigel Foster on keyboards, and she's going to be doing storytelling and poetry. And then on Monday, we have an art prize winner, Monroe Aki O'Brien, who has absolutely very controversial work that when people see it, immediately people are ignited to say something. And then on Wednesday, we're going to have an artist from Texas. His name is Joe Wade, and he does his work mostly in black and white, because that is what the climate is, and that's how he always sees things, and the turmoil and the trouble that we go through is always black and white. And so that will be our last guest on Wednesday. And then from that point on, I think I'm going to take this a step further and do a weekly podcast or Zoom program show talking about the voice behind, because it's always the voice that you hear within inside yourself that allows you to go in the direction that you think your spirit should go. So I want to say thank you, and I want to say good night, and thank you for joining us. And thank you, Khadari, for joining us. Mr. Powers, that name stands for something. Powers, you're powerful. I always told you that when I first met you, right? I said, you're a very powerful young man, you just don't know it yet. So thank you for joining us this evening. And I hope that you are open doors and windows that are open for you. And I look forward to hearing from you some more of your work.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I'll definitely be here for the next few people. I don't know specifically about Sunday, but I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna be tuning in. I love your energy.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much. And I want to say to everybody, good night, and I hope you have a pleasant evening. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, every day at 6:00 p.m. I want you here to see and talk about all the different aspects that artists do and what inspires them to be who they are and what they do. So again, good night. Thank you, Khadari, again. Okay.